Good afternoon and welcome. I'm Jocelyn Young, CEO of the Surrey and White Rock Board of Trade, and I want to thank you for attending the 2025 Development Industry Forum focused on stabilizing housing development in uncertain times. We begin by acknowledging that we are on the traditional territory of the Coast Salish people, specifically the Kwantlen, Katsi, Coquitlam, Kakite, Semiahmoo, and Tsawwassen First Nations. As well, I acknowledge the Inuit and Métis Nations people who live and work on these territories. I just saw Kim. Hi, Kim. Everyone, please help me thank the sponsors of this event. Our lunch sponsors are the BC Real Estate Association, the BM Group of Companies, and Unity. Thank you. I like how Lauren did it. Yeah, let's go. Our supporting sponsors are Applin and Martin and the Surrey City Development Corporation. Our community sponsor is Fortis BC. Yes, thank you, Fortis. And our pillar partners, and this one, I'd like to do the one clap. Who's been here for the one clap? A few people, you know Gurdeep. Okay, so we're gonna do one clap after I say the full name of the business. And if you don't know the business, you don't know how long the name is, so it's a bit of a trick. So, Aspira Retirement Living. Okay, we need to do better, okay? All right, a Cleveland Doan LLP. Ooh, yeah, okay, we're on it. Focus College, Oceana Park, TBMS Warehousing, Western Community College, and Canada's #1 group benefits plan, the Chambers of Commerce Group Insurance Plan by SNF Group Benefits. Okay, very good. Happy Friday, we're on it. Please help me welcome some guests in the audience. We have MP for Langley Township, Fraser Heights, Teiko Van Popta. Teiko, say hi. There you are. MLA for Surrey Serpentine River, Linda Hepner. Hi, Linda. Linda and I go way back, don't we? Yeah. MLA for Surrey White Rock, Trevor Halford. City of Surrey Mayor, Brenda Locke. White Rock City Deputy Mayor Bill Lawrence. City of Surrey Councillors Linda Annis and Mike Bose. Thank you for attending. Please also help me welcome the Surrey and White Rock Board of Trade Directors that are joining us today. Our esteemed Chair, Mr. Rory Morgan from KSW Lawyers. Louise Tremblay of Brella Community Services Society. Mike Spees of Ashdown Capital. I didn't see Mike, there he is. Hi, Mike. And from the Cloverdale Chamber of Commerce, we welcome our friend, President Jen Temple. There she is. All right. Everyone, on behalf of the Surrey and White Rock Board of Trade, I thank you for supporting Surrey and White Rock's City Building Business Organization. The Surrey and White Rock Board of Trade is working to meet business and economic challenges for our members and the wider business community. We advocate for red tape reduction, defined as excessive bureaucracy or routines or rules or complexity, which results in delay or unreasonable costs for businesses. Filing forms and applying for licenses are a part of doing business. However, we want to ensure that it isn't onerous on our members. Our annual red tape survey gives a baseline of our members' perceptions to measure how different levels of government can have the opportunity to improve processes. So, we will go over this in about 9 or 10 minutes flat. You can give me a thumbs up or thumbs down, going too fast, going too slow. As our chair likes to say, what is it, Rory? People love to talk about red tape, but no one wants to hear about it. Okay, but we're going to talk about it because it's important that we educate ourselves and also share our thoughts with government so they have an opportunity to understand our perspectives. All right, it's up. We use the red tape survey to understand the regulatory burdens faced by our members and identify areas for improvement and policy action. This year marks the 8th annual red tape survey, reflecting nearly a decade of feedback from you, our members. Here at the Board of Trade, we subscribe to an attitude of continuous improvement. To honor this tenet, we reduced this year's survey by 45%. giving our members some time back while still gathering the key insights we need. Can I have a round of applause for my staff who did that? I have to admit, I read it and I said, at first I said, guys, no, we have to do better. If we're asking everyone else to do better, so do we. So thank you to the team. This year's survey engaged respondents across Surrey, White Rock, and the broader Metro Vancouver region, or as our mayor likes to say, Metro Surrey. Right? Respondents span multiple sectors: real estate, construction, healthcare, manufacturing, and professional services. And this variety helps us understand red tape challenges across industries. The majority are small to medium-sized businesses, with 22% employing 1 to 5 staff and 20% employing 11 to 50. Less than 10% of respondents reported having between 51 to 100 employees, although we know they're out there. The top challenges are administrative tasks, such as understanding requirements and regulations, preparing and submitting documents, and navigating multiple portals. We asked respondents to identify the impact of regulatory compliance on their businesses or workplaces. Okay, we're on the right slide, great job. 75% said red tape either has a moderate or major impact on their operations, while 43% spend 6 or more hours per week navigating regulations. And that's almost a full working day, of course, spent on paperwork and compliance alone. Respondents identified the most time-consuming tasks impacting their bottom line as follows: understanding requirements, 67% said this is really difficult; gathering and preparing documentation, 57%, and submitting information through multiple portals or agencies at 54%. We also asked whether businesses must report the same information to multiple agencies, and unfortunately, nearly 40% said that yes, that is the case. It's not like a fun story that you get to tell over and over to your friends, right? So, for example, one paint manufacturer works with a BC-based association called Product Care for the collection of leftover paint. The association operates across Canada, however, is now facing an issue in Ontario, as the provincial government there added another reporting agency called Resource Productivity and Recovery Authority. This has added on substantial fees and duplicates the reporting process. Just one example of something that's likely unnecessary. Businesses like these are the backbone of our communities, supporting the home building infrastructure and broader economic growth, and of course, administrative fatigue can stall growth. So we asked respondents to rank how effective communication is from each level of government. And the data illustrates that over 50% of respondents find regional and municipal communication to be adequate, while 53% indicated that they find communication from the federal government to be poor, with information being hard to find. We also asked about how much red tape they are experiencing with different departments and agencies, and the CRA, not surprisingly, came in with 38% of people ranking them high. Maybe we just don't want to do our taxes, maybe that's it. WorkSafe BC was not much better at 31%, and the worst performer was BC Housing, with 42% saying they've encountered a high level of red tape with this agency. Metro Vancouver Regional District isn't too bad, with only 19%, giving them lower marks. Tax compliance, construction and development approvals, and environmental reporting were the top areas of frustration that we heard. At the municipal level, 66% rated development and amenity cost charges as a major red tape issue for them, and 57% cited building permits and inspections as a high burden. Business licensing, online city services, and procurement processes have improved but remain moderate pain points. Despite progress, respondents say that delays and inconsistent communication continue to impact business planning and growth. We also asked what would help in the reduction of red tape across all levels of government. What we heard is that they want to better understand the requirements and streamline processes. As illustrated in the graph, respondents wanted clearer instructions and guidelines, that was over 69%, consolidated forms across government agencies, over was 71%, less frequent reporting, and simpler online portals. For those that provided feedback, they recommended increased communication and a streamlined approach to accessing and submitting information. So survey data like this has helped tremendously in providing feedback to decision makers and contributing to their ongoing engagement activities. And I think it's also important to acknowledge improvements that we have seen over time. The City of Surrey has made major progress in cutting red tape and speeding up development approvals. They've expanded online permitting, fast-tracked tenant improvement reviews, and set up a task force to keep improving the process. And Mayor Locke is here and will share potentially more details on that. At the provincial level, BC is also working to cut red tape and modernize regulations. The government has reviewed business processes and reports that they've removed thousands of outdated rules and made digital options standard. New legislation now allows faster approval of renewable energy and major infrastructure projects, and we've heard about that and the downstream impact that that has on the manufacturing sectors that are biggest here in Surrey. So that's a good thing. At the federal level, efforts have focused on simplifying reporting and easing administrative burdens. The CRA has rolled out digital tools like automatic and pre-filled tax filing, along with improved online portals for businesses. There's also a growing suite of federal programs that they claim support digitization, workforce training, and R&D for small and medium-sized enterprises. However, despite these advancements, our survey results show that businesses want greater improvements, particularly in areas where processes remain complex. Areas that bring up the most frustration include delays and inconsistent communication around permits, inspections, and development charges. Duplication across jurisdictions, which is a tough one, we know, remains an issue for manufacturing, construction, and environmental factors. We also wanted to hear from our members on what they have done to reduce their own internal red tape. They are consistently reviewing and evaluating internal procedures, that attitude of continuous improvement at work. They're outsourcing services to alternative platforms when possible. They're improving internal communication and staying current on regulations at all levels. In closing, based on our findings and feedback from our members, the Surrey and White Rock Board of Trade recommends that government improve clarity of instructions and guidelines, consolidate reporting across agencies, simplify online portals, and finally, reducing reporting frequency where possible would be greatly appreciated. So, the Surrey and White Rock Board of Trade is committed to working with government to support the implementation of these recommendations. Oh my goodness, that's quite the phone ring. We will continue to track progress, support advocacy efforts, and bring the voice of the business community forward. And for those that haven't heard, we are starting something called the Business Growth Academy, and that's potentially a place where we can do some learning together and work towards improved processes. So thanks to all of you that participated in the survey. I know you don't have to do it, but we appreciate it because red tape is not just about less paperwork, it's about facilitating growth, creating jobs, and strengthening our community's economy. So with that, I'm excited to take a deeper dive into this important conversation and take it in a slightly different area where we are all very passionate and interested. As we saw in the survey results, the development industry is challenged by delays and bureaucracy around permitting and compliance. Today, we're talking about the critical housing crisis affecting communities throughout British Columbia, especially across the Lower Mainland. As municipalities like Surrey and White Rock continue to experience rapid growth, bringing new jobs and opportunities, we face unique challenges related to density and affordability. The need for attainable housing has reached a breaking point. But beyond the rhetoric are real challenges facing local governments, developers, and communities. Rising construction costs, interest rate pressures, supply chain disruptions, and infrastructure demands are slowing the pace of development, just as housing targets are ramping up. Today's conversation will provide candid insights into the economic, political, and regulatory realities of housing development and spotlight the opportunities for resilience and innovation at this pivotal moment. Now it's my pleasure to welcome Trevor Coote, CEO of the BC Real Estate Association, our lunch sponsor, to say a few words. Trevor.
Thanks, Jocelyn. Thank you. My colleague, Brendan Ogmanson, Chief Economist at the BC Real Estate Association, is going to come up here in a couple of minutes and speak as Chief Economist on trying to answer this idea, this question about stabilization and certainty, looking at it from an economic lens. And of course, inevitably one of the questions in the room is going to be related to the Cowichan ruling. And inevitably, Brendan is going to drop a typical panelist response, something to the effect of, not my area of expertise. And so I thought, just to get in front of that and not have everyone be disappointed at that moment in time, I give a little bit of context about where BCREA is in our assessment on how we can contribute to that conversation. We can all appreciate that the challenges, the difficult conversation that's happening today has been happening for nearly 200 years in this country and will continue to happen. It's not going to get any easier. There's going to be conflicting ideas and ideologies. For that nearly 200 years, there's been people in rooms like this with people like me speaking to people like you, originally over candlelight. Now we have QR codes and are looking for Wi-Fi passwords. But that conversation, that difficult conversation, is going to continue to happen. Where BCREA is not going to participate in litigating, relitigating, or trying to newly litigate how the results of those conversations should come to be. That's for people in different areas and expertise than us. But where we will participate in the conversation is around ownership. The system that we enjoy today, fee simple title, and the Torrens system, a fundamental component of that to identify ownership of any property, no matter who you are, is trust. Trust and certainty. And so as these conversations continue to happen, and rightly continue to happen, then the question that we will be posing and the framework that we will be looking at all of those conversations and decisions to be under is it improving trust and certainty in the systems that we have? Because they are fundamental. I'm going to leave it there. That is not going to satisfy everybody's appetite for when the panel comes up. But from BCREA's perspective, that's the grounding that we are entering the conversations under. I'm happy to connect on LinkedIn if you have more conversations. This is an interesting topic and one we are not scared to participate in. With that, thank you for the opportunity to sponsor, to continue to partner, and all the best to the Surrey Board of Trade and to all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Trevor. You know your LinkedIn is going to blow up. Although I'll be contacting you to see where you got those boots. That's what we're going to talk about. All right. I now welcome Milan Mann, President of the BM Group of Companies, our lunch sponsor, for his remarks. Milan, there you are. You're right in front of me. Let me shake your hand. Thank you so much.
I don't think my shoes are as nice, but I'll try the tough act to follow. We are a full-service development company from acquisition, general contracting, sales, and we have 22 service-based companies in the region. So I think we see the struggles of development from every point of a project's life cycle. So I don't want to add to the doom and gloom, but it's definitely not pretty there. And the support we get from municipal staff can only get so much, but I think trying to be optimistic rather than pessimistic, I think it's going to get worse before it gets better. So I don't really have much to add there, except for things are slow and things are tough to sell. So it's hard to feel for developers who may have bought land poorly and are holding it, and maybe they won't get their money out of their projects. But what that means is less and less homes are going to be taken to the market. And what does that do for the developers who maybe have a machine going? The prices are going to continue to go up. So if everyone's concerned about the homeowners and the end user, they might have the cost to pay for all this. So I'm sure we have a bunch of good ideas in this room. Let's just hope the ears are there to listen and act on them. So thanks for your time. Really open to see what the panel has to say, and hopefully somebody's crystal ball is a lot brighter than mine. So thank you.
Millen, Indra gives really good hugs. Right? Okay. This is what we're here to do, is have honest, authentic conversations so that all of these smart people together can come up with the path forward. So thank you, Millen. Okay, next, I'd like to welcome Katie Crocker, the next CEO of Unity, also a lunch sponsor, to say a few words. Katie.
Thank you. I'm not going to be as doom and gloom, and I'm going to be inspiring. So, yeah, get ready. Here we go. So, good morning or good afternoon, everyone. I'm Katie Crocker, and as introduced, I'm the incoming CEO of Unity, working with Doug Tennant until his retirement sometime in 2026. I'm honored to be here representing an organization that has been a pillar of inclusion and community in Surrey for close to 70 years. At Unity, we believe that a home is more than a roof. It's a place of belonging, safety, and connection. One of our missions is to create inclusive and affordable housing where people of all abilities and incomes can live side by side, building the kind of community that we all want to be a part of. That belief isn't just professional for me. It's deeply personal. I have a daughter with autism, with very complex needs. And like many families, I have spent years thinking about what inclusion really means, not just in the classroom, not just in workplaces, but in our neighborhood. For me, inclusion means that my daughter can one day choose where she lives, who her neighbors are, and how she participates in community life. The same freedoms every one of us in this room expects for ourselves and for our children. And I want this for everyone in our community. Before joining Unity, I had the privilege of leading AMSA, a provincial network that supports newcomers and refugees across British Columbia. And that work taught me that inclusion has many faces: cultural, linguistic, physical, social. But the foundation is always the same: a safe and welcoming home. So when I saw that Unity had what Unity had accomplished with Chorus Apartments, where people with and without disabilities live together in true community, I was inspired. And now with Unity's Harmony Apartments opening in 2027, we're taking that vision even further, creating deeply affordable, fully accessible homes for those who've waited far too long for housing that fits their lives. These projects don't happen in isolation. They rely on partnerships with government, with donors, with developers, and with municipalities that understand that inclusion is a shared responsibility. And for Harmony, we still need the support of our community. Through the support the City of Surrey and BC Housing and our community have shown, we have narrowed our funding gap from 10 million to 3.2 million. And are working hard over the next 14 months to bring this project home. So I want to thank the Surrey and White Rock Board of Trade for convening this conversation and for recognizing that stabilizing housing development means embracing all parts of the housing ecosystem, including the nonprofit sector. I'm honored to continue with Unity's work alongside Doug and our partners to ensure Surrey remains a place where everyone, regardless of ability or circumstance, can call home. Thank you.
Thank you, Katie. Now it's my honor to welcome your speakers today. Your first speaker is a 3-term member of White Rock City Council and the current Deputy Mayor, Bill Lawrence. So Bill, why don't you come on up? And I think we're going to have everybody come up. No, we're not. Oh, Heather, the boss, said we're just going to have each person individually. Good, then I can relax over here, right? Okay. Deputy Bill Lawrence, welcome to the stage.
Thanks for the introduction, Jocelyn. That was great. Get my notes ready here. Should not have used plastic. All right, good afternoon, everyone. I'm White Rock City Councilor and Deputy Mayor Bill Lawrence. Mayor Knight sends her regrets for not being here today and extends her full support for the important discussions that will be taking place today. It's a privilege to join you on behalf of her and this timely forum hosted by the Surrey and White Rock Board of Trade. Before I begin, I'd like to acknowledge that we are gathered here on the unceded territories of the Katzie, Kwantlen, Semiahmoo First Nations within the broader territory of the Coast Salish peoples. I'm pleased to be joined here with my fellow elected officials referred to earlier on in the day, as well as a number of other dignitaries. Thank you all for coming. Now, before I begin my presentation on today's housing topic, I'd like to bring your attention to one of the organizations having a large community impact in the White Rock and South Surrey area, the Semiahmoo Community Safety Society. Now, the word on the street, there's supposed to be a clicker. Bonus. There we go. So just a couple of weeks ago, I was rocking to the 80s and sporting an era-appropriate mullet hairdo in support of the Red Surge fundraising gala for community policing. And yes, it was an interesting hairdo indeed. But it was a fabulous evening, and it worked very, very well for community policing. The Society provides funding for a number of groups: the Semiahmoo Peninsula Marine Rescue Society, the Cliff Annable Scholarship for local high schools, and the White Rock Firefighters School Snack Program. Now, some of the programs that they also administer include the Speed Watch and Distracted Driving, Bicycle Patrol, Fraud Awareness Seminar, Victim Services, and Senior Meals Delivery Services. There are a number of them that are on the side there, and I know for the crew that are over on this side, I was hoping that there's going to be some sort of a TV monitor or something like that, but if you get your binoculars, you might be able to see some of the other programs that they do provide to the community. Now, my motivation for helping this group comes from my sister, Andrea. She was the first Black female RCMP constable in Canada, west of the Maritimes. Earlier this month would have been her 62nd birthday. So it's one of the big reasons, at least, why I really, really, really like this particular organization. For those who are interested in getting involved, perhaps as a board member, just grab me, actually just some of the pamphlets at least over on the welcoming desk as you're coming in, or you can catch me at least anyway before I leave, and I can provide you with their business card and contact information. They are definitely looking for board members right now, so if you are in the mood to join a nice volunteer board, these guys are awesome because the annual galas are phenomenal. Definitely bang for your buck and have a whale of a time. There's no doubt about that. So it worked out very, very well. So thank you for indulging me at least with that public service announcement. Appreciate it. Now back to the topic of housing. The housing puzzle is a challenge to get all the pieces put together correctly. Let's face it, the ultimate end user for housing that we seek to build are individuals or families who will eventually be living in those units. With my next comments, I'll probably be moving in on a panel discussion topic, but here goes. The average house cost has gone from 3 times the average annual income back in 1980 all the way to 7 times the annual income back last year, 2024. Having a family qualify for a mortgage with those parameters taken into consideration has become increasingly impossible. The rise in the cost of living with ever-increasing costs just for groceries is another piece of the puzzle, making it very difficult for home ownership. So those are some thoughts to reflect on. But what are we doing in White Rock? In White Rock, one of our most pressing challenges is meeting the growth and growing demand for housing while preserving the small town character that makes our city so special. City Council is committed to guiding growth responsibly with housing solutions that reflect community input, respect our built-out land base, and serve residents' needs. Following the province of BC's mandated housing targets issued back on June 2024, here are 4 key actions we've taken to support housing creation and plan for long-term infrastructure needs. Action number 1, modernizing the zoning bylaws. To meet new provincial requirements under Bill 44, Council acted by modernizing our zoning regulations. With nearly 90% of White Rock's land base falling within the province's restricted zone, this was a significant undertaking. The bylaw marked a key milestone in enabling small-scale multi-unit housing. Since its adoption, staff has refined the bylaw based on community feedback by adding clearer definitions, expanding housing options, and providing more flexibility in design. All of this was done while maintaining housing forms that reflect White Rock's character. Action number 2. To support housing delivery, Council adopted a new development procedures bylaw earlier this month, a major step forward in Council's strategic priorities. This bylaw streamlines approvals by establishing clear steps and requirements, delegates more authority to staff, and aligns with provincial legislation. These changes are expected to improve processing times, reduce development costs, and make the application experience more transparent and efficient. This work builds on a third-party support program introduced in 2023, which has significantly reduced building permit review wait times and marked an early achievement under Council's leadership. Together, these efforts reflect the City of White Rock's commitment to improving services and supporting housing delivery through smarter, more responsive systems. Action number 3, planning for future growth. Looking ahead, the City continues to plan for long-term growth through the official community plan update and the North Bluff Road Corridor study. While the OCP update is a legislated requirement, it's also a meaningful opportunity to shape how White Rock's housing needs will evolve over the next 20 years. The North Bluff Road Corridor study focused on long-term land use and density in the uptown area and remains a strategic planning tool. It explores how to better align infrastructure, support business competitiveness, and coordinate with Surrey's Semiahmoo Town Centre plan. Council was presented a draft bylaw amendment for the OCP this past Monday, October the 20th. Unfortunately, several council members decided to defer to the decision on approving the mandated OCP update. This deferral jeopardizes Council's ability to meet the December 31st provincial deadline. But more importantly, the critical rezoning that will outline future growth areas and maintenance of single-family zones has an uncertain future. Action number 4, infrastructure planning. As White Rock grows, we're continuing our plan for the renewal of aging infrastructure. The aging infrastructure plan developed by staff will guide long-term investment and keep our core systems reliable and resilient. This includes updating master plans and development cost charges to ensure infrastructure supports future density. In closing, the 4 key actions are: 1, modernizing zoning bylaws; 2, streamlining development approvals; 3, planning for future growth; and 4, infrastructure planning. These 4 key actions reflect how White Rock City Council is navigating the challenges of densifying a built-out city. We're balancing the preservation of our small-town character with the need to meet ambitious housing targets and comply with new provincial legislation, all through thoughtful planning and meaningful community engagement. As a council, we are committed to being proactive, transparent, and responsive, and we're proud to be building a future that works for everyone who calls White Rock home. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Bill Lawrence, thank you so much. Our next speaker continues to shape the future of Surrey. Everyone, please help me welcome Mayor of Surrey, Her Worship Brenda Locke.
Well, that would have been cool. I just about did a face plant. Would have fallen right on you too, Millen, so you wouldn't be laughing. Okay, I'm over it now. It was my own purse, so it was my fault. Well, welcome everyone. I'm really, really glad to be here. It's great to see so many people in the room, lots of you who I'm friends with and have known for a very, very long time. I just wanted to quickly respond on the whole issue of the couch and decision, and right now I can tell you Surrey is looking at how we can work with Richmond on that very, very important court case. So thank you to the Surrey and White Rock Board of Trade. Thank you for bringing us all together. It's always a pleasure to be here to talk about something that lies at the heart of our city, our province, and our country's growth and our shared future. And that's all around economic development and how we move forward. And I hope I'm a little bit cheerier than Millen, but I generally am. You know, I don't know how many people got to listen to the Prime Minister's speech, but I'm just going to give you a quick snapshot of one of his quotes. He said, "Now is not the time to be cautious because fortune favors the bold. The next decade will define not just our prosperity, but our place in the world. And together we can make Canada the most dynamic, resilient, and inclusive economy on earth. Our strength has always come from our ability to adapt, to build, and to believe in one another, and that is how we will thrive." And I guess to that I just say, wow, no pressure, Prime Minister Carney. But I truly do believe that that is the Surrey story in so many ways, and that is Surrey's challenge. And I think in Surrey, unlike other places, we have the stuff. We have the stuff to do it. We've proved it over and over again. Surrey is not just a growing city, it's a leading city. And I believe we are building the next modern city in Canada. And if you think about it, Calgary was probably the last modern city in this country. I think it's Surrey's turn, and I think we're turning that page. With our recent population count of 700, this is the most current one, 723,000 people, and an average of 1,200, and you've heard those numbers many times, 1,200 a month, we are poised to become British Columbia's largest city within the next decade, and that infamous 1 million mark is coming. And we know we can do that. In fact, we have been adding that many people every month for the last couple of decades. In fact, we have gained the size of Richmond right in Surrey in the last 20 years. But what truly defines our success isn't our size. It's the opportunities we're creating for people, for families, for businesses, all to succeed. And as we grow, our focus remains grounded in principles of sustainability, inclusivity, balance. Economic development isn't just about buildings and businesses, it's about people, it's about all of you. It's about ensuring that we create new jobs and opportunities. We also create affordable housing, accessible transportation, and vibrant and livable communities for everyone. This surge brings both tremendous opportunity but incredible responsibility. Our challenge right now is very clear: to deliver more homes quickly while building a city where families, businesses, and communities can thrive. And I always have to say right here, we don't build anything. Government doesn't build a thing. You do. You are the ones that create the places and spaces that we get to enjoy. And here is the exciting part about Surrey. Many of those things are happening right now, even with the economic reality we're facing. Last year alone, Surrey set a record, delivering over 6,300 new housing units, surpassing our own very ambitious targets. It was no accident. It was a result of deliberate shift in our approach at the city, that focused on facilitation instead of regulation and about building partnerships. We've now introduced over 30 major process improvements, and I could list them, but Jocelyn will throw something at me. But I would just like to say that we are listening to what industry is saying to us, and that's why we have the development task force that comes and gives us all that great information. Every week they met for a long time, and so I thank all the people on that, including Millen. So I guess with all of that, I also need to say to you, getting criticizing, or giving us, be nice when you criticize us, but we take that very seriously. We need to hear from you. We don't know. So any input you can give back to us, please do. And at this point, I'll give you my phone number. Has anybody got a pen? It's 604-340-8607. And I sincerely believe that if you want us to look at something, we will. We have done a number of new things that we never looked at before, things like above-ground parkades, things like now, for some of you know, we're piloting the excavation at third reading, those kind of things. We only did that because the industry came to us and said, let's give it a try. So I want to thank you all for that. We're constantly looking to streamline our approval process, modernizing our bylaws, and launching our online permitting program and piloting new programs. And the industry has noticed it, but still, we recognize that there are lots and lots of improvements that we still can and must make to continue to facilitate the work that you need to do. Surrey was named the most improved fees and the most business friendly in 2024 by NAIOP. It's really great. We really are thrilled that we get those kind of awards. But we really do want to make sure we're not doing it for ourselves. We're doing that to make our economy and our city robust and to make life easier for everybody who wants to build and to provide housing for people that need it. Those are, in many ways, more than just awards, though. They are proof that we're working and we can do big things faster when we really put our shoulder to us. So let's talk about the opportunities. Housing for all is a key priority in Surrey's strategy, and we are creating diverse mixed homes, purpose-built rentals, non-market options for families, seniors, singles, and Indigenous residents, as well as opportunities for priority populations that have barriers. We're building a city where families can afford to live, young people can shape their future, and businesses can recruit and retain talent they need to succeed. And that's super important because I hear that every day, especially from our industrial lands. They need those people. They need the workers, and Surrey can provide that. So homes are just the beginning. Livability means matching growth with critical investments. Developments like the King George Hub, for those of you who know that area, are perfect examples of how housing, amenities, transit, and public space all work together. And on infrastructure, my councillors have approved over $701 million of a capital plan, the largest in Surrey's history, which will fund 36 projects that will touch every corner of our city. And I know some of the developers right here will be working on some of those. New and expanded recreation centres like the Cloverdale Sport and Ice Complex that's getting open this weekend. Newton Community Centre will anchor the communities, and a premier entertainment district complete with an interactive art museum, proposing a 10,000-seat arena, centre block development with BC's second medical school at SFU. Those will all become the region's second metropolitan centre. And we've committed nearly $450 million over 5 years to enhance our roads, our transit, and our goods movement right across this city. The Surrey-Langley SkyTrain and the King George Rapid Bus will connect workers to jobs and businesses to market. And our advocacy to TransLink has seen our bus service increased in the past year from 29% to over 50% access for our residents. And that's a really big deal in 1 year. And by the way, we took most of that from Vancouver, so that makes it even better, right? And we will continue to raise the Surrey voice loud and proud to the provincial and federal government on other important issues like healthcare and education and public transit, and of course, public safety. The 72nd Avenue expansion is the largest municipal road investment in BC's history, and it will create one contiguous east-west corridor improvement, improving the logistics and commuter flow. And we've done all this with one of the lowest property tax increases in the entire region. So now let's look at the scale of the opportunity that's ahead of all of us. Our recent Surrey Housing Needs Report identified that Surrey will need 53,000 additional housing units by the end of 2028 to meet our needs. 53,000? That's the number that provincial government gives us. I've already told them that's going to be tough. I don't know what you think, Mellon. We're going to do it? No. Cheery. So here's my ask. Join us as a partner in the investment in our city of Surrey. In Surrey, we understand that every business, large or small, represents vision, courage, and risk. And it represents heart and sweat, challenges, and success. You will invest and risk your time, your capital, and your trust in our city, and we honor that commitment. Risk is a really big deal to me personally. I get it. I get it that the risk that you all take when you decide to go into business in whatever it is in our city, and I honor that. When I was an MLA, Jimmy Pattison used to come and talk to us every once in a while. And Jimmy said at one of our meetings, he said, "Always remember that capital is cowardly and it will not go where it's not wanted." Capital is cowardly, it won't go where it's not wanted. My team understands that truth, and from the beginning of our team's from the beginning of our term, we recognized the need to make corporate cultural shifts in City Hall. Those are not easy to do. Changing the shift inside of government is difficult, but we are committed to excellence and we will continue to do that. So Jocelyn is like getting antsy here, but I'm just going to ignore her. Please know that in Surrey, we want your business and we will do whatever we can to help support you in it, to move mountains if we have to. We really don't care if we're gleaning stuff from those other cities in Metro Surrey. We want it right here, right now, and we will do whatever it takes to get there. I am confident that Surrey business leaders have the guts, the determination, and the innovation to be a model of resilience in this country, and it's imperative that all levels of government support Canadian entrepreneurs. The opportunity is here, so let's build that future together. Thank you all for believing in Surrey, and thank you for your resilience, your creativity, your trust. We see the risks you take, and we honor that. So with that, I want to thank you all very much.
Thank you, Mayor Locke. You take as long as you like. I was hanging out. Okay, now it's my honor to introduce your panel this afternoon. I'd like them all to join me on stage. I have permission, it's in the notes. Everybody gets to come up all at once, and they'll each take a turn in order at the podium, but we'll just hang out here in our chairs. So please be prepared with your questions or comments as you listen to the perspective from these industry experts. We'll have a chance to ask them some questions once they're done speaking. And so first up, we have Chief Economist of BC Real Estate Association, Brendan Ogmanson. Thank you. Chief Development Officer of West Group, Brad Jones. And Chief Executive Officer of Unity, Doug Tennant. Brendan, we're actually going to start with you, so come on up.
Afternoon. Sorry, I just popped a fisherman's friend right before I came up. Okay, I'm going to kind of set the stage for kind of the outlook for Surrey over the next 10 years or so. Thought I'd add a Halloween theme since it's next week. These are some charts to scare you out of your boots. If I can find the clicker. Okay, starting with home prices. Home prices are up kind of a terrifying amount in Surrey. White Rock too. White Rock's up about 93% since 2010. Surrey's up about 105% is the median price for all product types since 2010. There was a period in the kind of post-financial crisis aftermath. We had this supply overhang. Prices were really flat all across the Fraser Valley, but in Surrey for almost 7-8 years. Then we weren't building enough. We had a really low supply. Demand shock hits in the second half of the teens. Prices absolutely went wild, and we know what happened in the pandemic. I'm really worried right now, considering what's happening with development and how there's a possibility for that pipeline to dry up. Really concerned we might repeat this pattern over the next decade, especially since housing demand. Oh, my font where it says spooky stat. I downloaded a spooky font with blood dripping down it, and now I can't share it. So you have to imagine where it says spooky stat. It's actually a really cool, terrifying font. So the population aged 25 to 44 in Surrey is set to rise by 30% over the next 10 years. People aged 25 to 44 tend to want to form their own households, need houses to do so. Compare that with Vancouver, where that population is only set to grow 1.5% over that same time period. Surrey is exploding, and Surrey is incredibly young. If you look at the most common age in Surrey, what we call in stats the mode, so if you're a bump into someone on the street, what's the most likely age they're going to be in Surrey? It's 22. What a nightmare to have so many 20-year-olds. I live with a 19-year-old, and man, just replicate that 15,000 times. But also the top 5 most common ages in Surrey are all under 30. It's a really, really young place. But young people that are in their 20s now need housing in the future. And unfortunately, we've got a pipeline of housing in Surrey that is maybe set to dry up a little bit. So if you look at the number of units under construction, it's coming down. We have a lot of unsold inventory, and that means that projects are going to get delayed or canceled or put off, and we're not replenishing the pipeline of housing that we really, really need in a city that's growing. It's going to have 30% more people in exactly the demographic that needs housing. So, what does this look like over the next decade? We've got a housing stock in blue that if we're just build at the current pace we're building now, is not going to be anywhere close to being able to fulfill the amount of housing demand that we're going to see. If you look at projections for households from BC Stats, we're looking at like 300 households by the end of the next 10 years. 300,000, households in the next 10 years in a population of close to 1 million. If we're not building a lot more, we simply can't house those people, or we're going to cram a lot more people into the same amount of houses, or prices are really going to start rapidly rising. So one thing I've been saying about Surrey really for the past decade is don't make the same mistakes that Vancouver made. You're going to become Vancouver in size. Don't make the same mistakes. Unfortunately, we've made a lot of those same mistakes and prices are really accelerating. So if we want to get affordability under control at all, we need to build way, way more housing over the next decade. That's all I got. Well, I'll go back to whoever's next, or there's gonna be someone, but if you give me 7 minutes, I do 5, right?
Who?
I leave you wanting less too. So.
Got a really good PowerPoint user here getting GIFs in PowerPoints. That's pretty cool. All right, I have a presentation I've been giving this year called "The Housing Crisis is a Choice" because I think it is. Little overview on West Group. We're a local family-owned company, operate across Metro Vancouver. We're one of Canada's largest privately held real estate organizations. We focus across Metro Vancouver. We really like big mixed-use master plans, and we operate in all asset classes. As Mayor Locke mentioned, government doesn't build a lot in Canada. The private sector builds 95% of all housing, and the real estate and construction sector contributes more than 1/5 of BC's GDP. But the current state is we're in a cost of delivery crisis. We have escalating fees and charges. Housing starts have effectively stopped. And the market's propped up on CMHC financing for rental projects. It currently accounts for 60% of apartments under construction in Canada. So think about how much worse things could be. Everyone thinks our business is super complicated and performers are scary. We do a really simple thing. Are we making a margin on top of our costs? And right now, if we are, it's less than you'd make by putting it in a GIC. So it's a pretty risky venture for a pretty crappy return. What's happened over the last few years? We have project sizes that have gotten much larger with TOD policy, everything else that's come from cities, office components, big mixed-use components, below market housing. That all adds to the scale of the project. Scale of project means risk. And that reward's been diminishing. What we've seen over the last few years is diminishing returns due to increasing costs, government fees and charges, and we've seen a decline in investor purchasers in condo projects where you actually can't hit a pre-sale test anymore. So bad formula to build if your risk is far higher and your return's getting a lot smaller. Big culprit of that is government fees and charges. I didn't have a table for the city of Surrey, so I don't know what it looks like. Brenda, but I picked City of Vancouver and City of New West because we went back and looked at our historical data. And this is a terrifying pattern for government fees and charges to be following. This is hockey stick level growth. I've joked in some rooms it's almost a meme coin when you introduce Metro Vancouver to the mix. And what you can really see when you go back and look at the data, this is a kind of a complicated chart. We went and looked and compared our return on costs in our projects against the growth in government fees and charges. And you see project viability crash at the point that the Metro Vancouver fees and charges were introduced. So it is the elephant that broke the camel's back. It was not small, it was not subtle, and it is crushing the market. A A really great example of this chart is from a project we're working on in Metro Vancouver. It's a mixed-use master plan that has 6 towers. It's across the street from a SkyTrain station. It is not in the city of Surrey. The project's over $1 billion of risk to take on. We would have the pleasure of paying over $200 million in government fees and charges to move it forward. And that's far more than the land is actually worth. Or, alternatively, we could just reinvest in the existing retail plaza, and the land's worth more by doing that. And so when you get the mix wrong in policy and in government fees and charges, you end up with strip malls. You don't end up with mixed-use communities on transit. I love this slide because people get really upset, but it gets your attention. Before the tariffs came in, I actually did this as a joke, but I think it's actually true. Canada puts tariffs on its own economy through regulation, through policy, through fees and charges, and we've done that with housing. So to put this in perspective, if you gave us free land and we made no profit, the cost to deliver a new home is worth more than CMHC says is affordable. So taking our profit out of the mix, taking land out of the mix doesn't change the problem. We have a cost of delivery crisis in this country. And the reality is housing's a massive economic engine for Canada. 1 in 13 Canadian jobs are in construction and new housing. Like I said, it accounts for 1/5 of the GDP. It's bigger than mining, bigger than manufacturing, bigger than agriculture, bigger than forestry. There's currently 170,000 jobs at risk in Canada in this sector, which is 10 times that of the auto sector crisis in 2008. And remember the government response to that. New housing construction generates billions in government revenue, delivers infrastructure, community amenities, supports economic growth by building places to live and work. And right now the check engine light's on, and like Homer Simpson, we're covering it up with tape. That's all I got.
Thanks for having us here. My name's Doug Tennant, and I'm soon to be the former CEO of Unity. And I'm delighted that our board has had the foresight to bring Katie on for a bit of a time where we can have a transition that's going to work well. Unity, we do our work on the unceded territory of the Coast Salish people, specifically the Kwantlen, Katzie, and Semiahmoo First Nations. And I myself actually live we've downsized, prepare for my retirement, on a beautiful apartment called Satsu Shores on Tsawwassen First Nation, and I love it. And I do agree with Trevor that the answer to the question that you posed is not simple. However, it is very clear. And like you, I'm not an expert, but my father actually is. He spent half his life studying land claims in British Columbia, and you can look him up, Paul Tennant, and he has a great book that sort of, and what he found was that the certainty that needs to happen is through the settlement of treaties. And so where I live on Tsawwassen First Nations, the treaty has been settled, and they're doing remarkable work. Aquaminis are developing. There's immense development there, and I do think that we as Canadians and developers should be advocating for the settlement of those treaties, because that gives us the certainty for developers to build and for First Nations to prosper as well. So I'm not an expert, so I'm commenting just as you did as well. I'm very pleased to be here. And I'm supposed to be the optimistic end to this scary Halloween scare fest. But I'm actually going to reinforce and agree with what the two gentlemen before me have said, is that the market is shaky right now. It's not great. We all know that. But at the same time, and Mayor Locke referenced this, housing need has not paused. We still know that people desperately need housing. At Unity, we have over 200 people with developmental disabilities who want to live in harmony, which we are going to complete in 2017. And we have more than that, people who just want to have housing, which we also develop because it's a mixed use model. And there's, I think, 5,000 people on BC Housing's housing list in Surrey. So there's a desperate need for housing. And nonprofits can be the stabilizer for development during times when the economy is down for building. And so why nonprofits keep building and using ourselves, Unity, as an example of that as well. So when the market retreats, mission-driven developers such as Unity, and I'm going to point out Brella as well with Louise, keep going because we know that people can't wait for the next market cycle. On a daily basis, I talk to people who desperately need housing. And we measure our return not in profit, believe me, not in profit, but in community impact. And we can layer public, private, and philanthropic funding. We also hold land long term. We don't flip or sell when prices rise. And an example of that would be with the Harmony Project. Unity owns 5.5 acres of land, beautiful location in South Surrey. And when we were first rejected with our project by Surrey Council, I had a lot of developers calling me up saying, would you like to sell that 5.5 acres? Because we can, give you $25–30 million for that. It's a lot of money for a nonprofit. And, the suggestion was like, you can buy a farm out somewhere and build your housing, a model of housing for people with disabilities from our past. And of course we didn't do that because we believe that people with disabilities have the same right as anyone else in this room to live where things are happening, live close to their family, close to businesses. And so we held on and we were successful. And one of the main reasons why we were successful is that we have trust. So we have the trust of our donors, of the people who live in the city, of municipal leaders. And so we prosper, and we do have the community on our side. So with the Harmony Project, which was approved, we did have definitely some neighbors, like a few dozen neighbors who were against the project, but we had over 6,500 people who expressed their support for the project. And when we're talking about the barriers we face, one thing I would say to municipal leaders, and I think that the developers in this room would agree with this as well, is that sometimes we get the hierarchy of stakeholders wrong. We would talk to our neighbors, the dozens or so that were against the project, and I believe they thought we had a negotiating relationship. But we didn't have a negotiating relationship with them. They were a stakeholder. And on our hierarchy of stakeholders, we would say that what comes first is the people who need the housing in the city. So these aren't people coming from elsewhere. They're people who live in Surrey who desperately need housing. Second should be the owner of the property, which is us. We own that property outright. And then third, yes, the neighbors need to be consulted. But sometimes politicians get that backwards, and they have the neighbors as the first part. They're a stakeholder. They're not a negotiating group. Other barriers we face is, rezoning and permitting delays. But I will say that, there are positives with that in terms of Linda Hepner, who's here, the former mayor. When we were building Chorus apartments, which we completed in 2016, we had a direct line to the city manager. And when things weren't going well, one thing that Surrey did was move us forward at that time. And when we're talking about building at times when other people aren't building, in 2015, 2016, when we built Chorus, I think it was the first rental building that had been built in Surrey in like 2 decades or something like that. So again, just demonstrating that not-for-profits will build when developers, are pulling in the reins. So how can municipalities support organizations like Unity and other not-for-profit housing providers? So number one would be land and zoning. So have city land that can be leased or dedicated to nonprofit builders. Pre-zone or fast-tracked nonprofit projects. Number two, fees and process relief. Waive or reduce development cost charges and permit fees. And this is where I do need to give kudos to Brenda Locke and the full council. Harmony Apartments was the first affordable apartment project, rental apartment project in Surrey that received granting back through the Housing Accelerator Fund of our full development cost charges. And that's one thing that helped us move the project forward. And I'm happy about that, but I'm actually happier that council also enacted policy that will allow other not-for-profit to also experience that relief and development cost charges. And that's great, because that means other people can go through the trouble of building affordable housing, and Unity and others don't have to do it all. So I really appreciate that. Was a really positive outcome for that. Pre-development or bridging funds also helpful. Property tax relief during construction. And then just that partnership and advocacy, please. Having decision makers in council, MLAs provincially and MPs federally have really helped us along. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Trevor Holford, who appeared at the hearing where Harmony was approved, and speaking as a citizen. At 2 in the morning, Trevor, you stuck around before the mayor shut me down. You stuck around, and you spoke on behalf of the project. So another positive thing is that we certainly do have the support of the community, and to tell our story and to build nonprofit housing. So the big picture, I would say, is that Surrey can't afford to stop when the market is slowing as it is right now. Every paused project means more families are waiting and more people are getting priced out of the city that they love. Nonprofits will never replace the private market, but we can steady the system when others can't. Chorus in 2016 was built in uncertain times. Harmony right now is being built in uncertain times. The certainty comes from our mission and from the partnerships that put community first. So if we as a community support nonprofit housing, we don't just maintain development, but we actually build healthy and inclusive communities. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Doug. Checking. Are we on? Okay. All right, so I will now call for questions from the audience. If you have a question, please go to the microphone in the middle of the room. Please state your name, company, and then ask your question. And I also ask that your questions be, of course, brief and respectful. I can get us started if no one's running to the mic. Okay. So, Brendan, without the font, I was still scared enough. And but I'm also amused. I didn't know a chief economist has such a good sense of humor. So, my first question is for you. Based on current economic trends, what do you see as the biggest challenges for housing development in Surrey and White Rock over the next 2 to 3 years?
I think not just Surrey and White Rock, but everywhere. Demand, first of all, we have an economy that's been growing very slowly and is probably going to grow pretty slowly over the next year. So we're not likely to see, the type of kind of ramp up in on the demand side that might really generate more pre-sales and the kind of things that we need to get development going. And on the supply side, it's sitting inventory that developers obviously really want to get rid of so they can start new projects, but also that needs to be funded by pre-sales and everything else. And on top of that, you have what Brad was saying about we've got a level of costs that just stifles development. So we have a province that wants to build a lot of housing, but we have municipalities that are trying to squeeze as much out of those developments as possible, and that just can't continue. So if we want, the next 3 years, Surrey is going to keep growing. If we can't build enough housing for that growth, again, we're just going to replicate what we saw over Vancouver 10, 15 years ago, where prices keep accelerating. Right now, you can still get an apartment in Surrey for $500,000. If we don't fix, the current supply issues that we're going to have, we're going to see $800,000 apartments, because same as what we're seeing in Vancouver. And so the only way to get around that is to really encourage and incentivize a lot of construction.
Thank you. Brad, my next question is for you. From a developer's perspective, what regulatory or red tape challenges are slowing down housing projects locally and regionally?
I think right now we're seeing a level of collaboration from most local governments that I don't think I've ever seen before. You know, the work that we're all doing is mostly going back and redoing things we already had approved because the projects are too big or the risk profile's off. I think the biggest thing policy-wise that's changed is actually the provincial housing bills, and I think those are good and bad. The one thing I think's happened is people misunderstand land economics in this market because the base land cost is so high. And so the value of the shopping center, in my example, or the existing single-family home is so high that, you know, the expansion of TOD policy across Metro Vancouver, across the SkyTrain line, has kind of equalized out land value across Metro Vancouver, but that base value is high. And so you have this tight place where projects can't actually get to a place where they exceed base value, and it's kind of stifled the whole market.
Not very positive, guys. But we knew that. You can go to the microphone. Yeah. I can wait for you. Take your time. Go ahead, sir. Introduce yourself, please.
I'm Brad Hughes, president of Parkridge Homes. We've been building this city of Surrey for 35 years. It's the first time in 35 years we are not actually starting construction on a project. We moved in between Surrey and Langley last 2 years, 384 families into our new homes. And I do a lot of study, read a lot of papers, podcasts, and the city of Surrey and White Rock are not going to be able to solve the housing crisis. In Canada is taxation. So one of our townhouses that with taxes is about $1 million for a family to live in the city, okay? To qualify for that, you have to have income around $230,000. Of that $235,000, 54% goes to tax between province and federal. After that, GST, PST, gas taxes on everything you buy, plus other fees, means someone or that family that has to have $235,000 to qualify to buy that home is actually paying 75% tax in Canada. The top threshold in Canada where you reach that is around $235,000. In the United States, it's $800,000 US in some states. And the threshold in Canada has not been indexed to increase the taxes to where inflation has been. So that top tax rate has stayed flat. Well, inflation has gone on and on and on. Until the federal government, provincial government change that, people do not have money to buy the houses. So as much as we want to create more housing, until that policy changes where people see that they have a bit more control where they want to invest their money, we will not have people to buy our homes. And that's the biggest hurdle in all my study in the last couple of years, is they just can't afford it because they're crushed with the taxation. If they changed it to index that to inflation and went to more of a consumption tax and incentivize people to invest in their home, people have the money to buy the homes. But right now, the chart that was shown where, yes, whatever broke the camel's back, the straw broke the camel's back, was the increased taxation for DCCs, CACs, Metrovan. It is killing our projects, but at the end of the day, it's still not enough of a difference for people to qualify because the tax thresholds are too high. I hope you guys all remember that next time you vote. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm just going to do a figurative mic drop and turn it over to the panel here. You each should say something on this. Let's talk taxes. Is it killing us?
I think certainly on the development side, it's killing development. I mean, I don't want to get into a discussion of top marginal rates and average tax rates. You have to have very high income for your average tax rate to be 54%. It doesn't just think you don't pay 54% on the whole. No one likes discussions of average versus marginal tax rates. But clearly, yeah, fine. You won my heart over as an economist by saying we should have a consumption tax. Like, yes, of course we should. But we tried that with the HST, and the sitting government got thrown out. So nobody likes consumption taxes either. They don't like bridge tax. They don't like any of the taxes that economists like. Income taxes are obviously the distortionary. We'd like to have consumption taxes so you can incentivize saving, but the public hates consumption taxes. So one of the many great ideas that gets killed by politics. I don't know if I had any other points. Anyone else on taxes?
Sure. As an organization that is somewhat funded by taxes, a couple of things. So one is in the housing we build, there's sometimes a confusion that government is fully funding it. When we built Chorus, it was a $15.5 million project. Government came with about 1.6 million. Unity covered the rest. With Harmony Apartments, the construction is about $36 million in construction. Government's coming with about 14.5 million. We needed that to make it work because of the price increase of construction, et cetera. And I would say, yeah, taxes are definitely part of the picture. But when I look at the first house I bought in White Rock, it was $240,000 in 2001. I think it was listed for 1.3 million, and so that is more than the tax is the issue, I would say.
I think extending on the tax competitiveness conversation, we have an income problem in this country and in this province particularly. And you've seen price escalation on just about everything, particularly housing, but we haven't seen income growth. And that's an economic challenge that Mr. Carney's made some big promises on. And I think the other unique thing in Canada is there aren't very many metro locations to move to for jobs if you need to be around a city. Compared to the US, there's 15 fairly equal ones you could move to. In Canada, there's like 5. And so I think that creates a compression in this country that isn't talked about enough as an impact on housing.
Thank you. Microphone.
Good afternoon. Trevor Hargreaves from the BC Real Estate Association. Kind of building on that last commentary, I was recently attending in Victoria the UBCM conference, the Conference of BC Municipalities. And over the course of the week, you're watching, session after session, talking about transportation, talking about housing issues, health issues, what have you, right across the board. And what I was personally really stricken with is that no matter what the file is, the message was basically, we are in dire need of money, we're in dire need of infrastructural development. And the BC NDP's response was, we have no money. Sorry about that. And I think that's when we're talking about the fact that we're all being taxed to death, we also, putting our money where our mouth is, so to speak, we have a government that can't afford to buy lunch right now. And so in that actual reality that we exist in, what do you think are the best ways that the provincial government can actually help address the housing crisis, where we're not talking about either billions of dollars in lost revenue or billions of dollars that they have to invest in? How do they help in a manner that's not economically decimating to them, being that they're already economically decimated?
I think to start that conversation, you have to ask what the money's being spent on. So, you look at, okay, we pay a lot of tax in this country. There used to be an exchange in Canada that you pay high tax and you get a high level of service. And I see a province right now that has massive underinvestment in just about every part of the public service except employment. So, you see every weekend listings that hospitals and emergency rooms are closed. Where are the taxes going? So I agree there needs to be a lot more investment, but I think what we're seeing is the result of nearly a decade of effectively no economic growth, no resource growth, no investment in growing the economy, really outside of centralized tech work in Vancouver and government administration. So I think it's a much more nuanced conversation about how are the books being managed on both sides, both on growth and on spending.
I think with non-profit housing, BC Housing and the government needs to allow a lot more creativity and supporting models that work. So with Chorus Apartments, again, not a big government investment for a very successful project. We are able to make it work with 20 of the 71 homes at shelter rate because we can, everything has to be income tested and below market, but we can work with the other rents to make it self-subsidize. And so it's going to work in perpetuity. With Harmony, we were forced to be part of the, and it was a good thing, I guess. We were part of the Community Housing Fund, where the rent bands are very set. Not only that, it's a 60-year agreement. And so it frustrates me that we as an organization are dependent on BC Housing for 60 years, and then our tenants are dependent on us because the subsidy comes within the building, and we could be the worst landlord in the world, and we're not. And they would still be stuck with us. I really believe that if not-profits are able to be given a bit more autonomy and freedom, then we could create a lot more housing like Chorus, where there isn't the government interaction that is going to be necessary for harmony. And Chorus is a model that works exceptionally well.
I would say too, given that the provincial government, is this mic on? Yeah?
It is.
Okay.
You just have to.
Sure. Given the government doesn't have a lot of money, and we're talking about development charges again, someone has to pay for all the growth, right? You know, if we're going to add that many people, you know, to fund that infrastructure somehow. The way cities are doing it right now happens to be a way that crushes development. Another way is massively raising property taxes, which I think is a pretty good way to get yourself shipped out of office in most cities. So we need to probably get creative in how we fund infrastructure, right? You know, the feds are going to make an announcement about development charges, I guess, next week. Is it early November?
Yeah, about 2 weeks.
Part of the Liberals' campaign promise was to reduce development charges by 50%. I don't know if that just means the feds are going to pay the 50%. Nothing actually gets fixed on how much it costs. But maybe get more creative. Like, why don't we have tax-advantaged municipal bonds or something, the way we do in the United States? We could have that. We could spread that investment across investors. We get a yield. They get the tax-managed asset. Why don't we look at things like that instead of just, well, maybe the government can borrow more, maybe the province can borrow more. Why don't we make this into spread that risk across investors?
So thank you, Trevor, for that question. Why don't we follow up and talk about what really winning ideas or policies you've seen across the globe in different jurisdictions that seem to work very well and you think that we need to integrate here into our practices in Canada? Am I stumping you with this question? All of you. I mean, we all, when you go to a conference, you talk to other people, you do your studying, you see what happens around the world. Is there anything out there that can help us improve our situation?
I think, and Brad can speak to this much better, but like changing what type of housing forms are legal too. Like, when if you go to Europe, they have these great, small apartments, but with the layouts, because they can have single stairs, and you have there's 6-story walk-ups or whatever, and you've got windows on both sides, 2 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms in the same space that here would be, a 400 square foot, 1-bedroom apartment or whatever. Like, legalize that type of housing and put it everywhere. But a lot of times you can't build, especially can't build affordably, what would actually work for, what's going to be a population that has a bunch of, 25 to 35-year-olds.
And our codes don't allow any of that type of housing, whether it's electrical code, energy code, exiting, any of those things, not allowed. The other one, I think, it was Brennan started answering, and it was in the question too. We haven't changed the tools municipalities have to raise money since the inception of municipalities. So we're facing a download of responsibility where the feds are the beneficiaries of immigration through growth in GDP, income tax revenue, all that. And then the municipal pressure on a city like Surrey, based on that growth rate, is far, far beyond their ability to raise money through property taxes and effectively user fees to some extent. And so there's a re-examination of the tools that is badly needed. And I think if the growth is going to come through immigration like it has, or anything looking like that, the feds have to invest far differently in infrastructure, and we have to move to a US-style infrastructure bond model that's very successful. And the other thing, there's simple moves too. We've been talking to the feds for the last 6 months about deferring development charges until closing, when the purchaser actually moves into the home. So this didn't used to be such a big deal, but these fees went from being $6,000 or $8,000 a unit to $50,000 or $80,000 a unit. And when the purchaser buys the home, not only do they flow through to the purchaser, they also pay PTT on that piece of the price. They pay GST on that piece of the price. And so by moving it out of the transaction with the developer, there's a bunch of savings in tax on tax. And the municipality still gets their money. It's just deferred, and the feds can solve that with a cheap interest rate.
And from the nonprofit perspective, I would say it's unlocking the potential in land owned by not-for-profits and churches. And I know Surrey did some work in the past where they created a map of that social purpose real estate. I spent a lot of time working with boards of not-for-profit organizations where their sophistication is like baking muffins to make money, and now they're supposed to do a $35, $40 million project. So part of the answer also is supporting not-for-profits and churches to have the sophistication and expertise in order to move forward with the land. And a lot of that would also be private not-for-profit partnerships that some of them have worked out quite well.
Great. Gentlemen.
I'm the other Trevor from the BC Real Estate Association. I think to my colleague's Trevor's comment, a quote that I don't know who to attribute to is, if money can solve your problem, you don't have a problem. And I don't know if I agree with it, but it always gets me thinking. Related to this question, and Brad, you alluded to it, this challenge with the drop in pre-sales as a metric or a method of financing. One of the advocacy positions that we have is around the foreign buyer ban federally, foreign buyer tax provincially, making adjustments to those following an Australia model to focus just on pre-sales rather than all housing. Of course, bans on any type of foreign participation pull really, really high. So the governments aren't incentivized to make any changes there. All of that said, one of the pieces that we keep hearing on our advocacy efforts to open up that door a little bit is that by opening that door, it incentivizes or creates the environment for developers to build smaller units, kind of what Brendan was just saying. Is that true? Like, is it that foreign demand, like just the opportunity to finance on pre-sales, that incentivizes the smaller condo development in order to densify and leverage more financing? Is there a correlation there?
I don't think it's direct. I think that assumed correlation came out of the rise in the market and the attribution, whether accurate or not, I would say not, of that to foreign buyers. I mean, I think, a lot of these people are global investors. They're not dummies, right? So I think that assumption is a bit silly. The unit size is a reaction to the price in this market. I think the Australia model has a lot of merit. I think there's so many examples in this market. We have somebody in our office, we moved them up from DC, specialized person. They can't buy a house right now without paying 20% tax. They move their family here. They have their kids in school. Why are they banned from buying a house to live in? They want to put their roots down here. Back to economic growth in this province, we want to attract businesses here. Okay, well, your executives are going to move here from somewhere in the world and they can't buy a home. They don't want to do that. And so I think it is a very politically popular policy. I've been told it polls number one for the NDP, the foreign buyer ban. Anytime they talk about it, it's just a home run. And so, that's where what's the right thing to do versus what's the politically apt thing to do are very different. And I think if we're serious about growing our economy and growing investment, we have to change the way that policy is constructed.
Yeah, and there's like a fundamental tension right now between what the province would like to do. They want to complete 600,000 units of housing in the next decade, but don't ever discuss how those 600,000 units get financed. They never talk about it. So if it's going to be purpose-built rental, you're going to need to raise money from institutional money mostly, and if it's going to be condos, you need pre-sales. And it's probably somewhere in the order of like $200 to $300 billion in just the construction cost, not even talking about the infrastructure. It's $2 trillion for Canada. Where's that money going to come from? We can't source that amount of capital domestically. It just can't. And especially we're competing against all the other provinces in Canada who are trying to do the same thing. So we desperately are going to need to tap other sources of financing, and we're going to need to lift the foreign buyer ban, maybe even get rid of the foreign buyer tax. That's going to be really politically unpopular, but there is no way to build that amount of housing without opening up capital.
Yeah, just to comment on our experience to do with the size of apartment units, Our studio apartments, and we build them bigger than BC Housing says we should, and everyone has a deck, so it's very livable. About 320 square feet or so, 350 square feet. There's almost no turnover. Like those are the ones that people really enjoy. But they do that because, again, we're building in the middle of the city where people can walk to shopping. Very different experience if we're, again, out in a farm. A studio would be probably pretty bleak, but when you're in the city and you can go to the library and things like that, it's actually very livable.
We have time for one more question, and I have a question, or someone can run to the mic. Okay. You can go to the mic over here. Yeah. You don't have to run. It's okay. I'm kidding.
I have a question and also a comment.
Can you introduce yourself too?
Yeah, my name is Amanda McGee. I'm the public director for the BC Real Estate Association. And in industry, I wear a hat in mortgage finance on the residential side. So my first question, I guess, is to the speaker from West Bank. For a while, maybe 10 years ago, we were hearing a lot from development around potentially some advocacy for a 1031 exchange or something comparable to allow for capital gains rollover. To open up supply in the urban centers and potentially assist in development there. So my question is, where did that ever go? Is that still top of mind for government or the development community?
Yeah, it's still talked about. I haven't talked to the feds about it in a few months. They were looking at understanding it. What it allows you to do is roll over profits from Project A into Project B. And so it's incredibly successful in the U.S. There's a bunch of like very, very simple tax moves in the United States that allow for investment in housing that are quite replicable here, and you eventually do pay the tax, just it allows you to roll over and reinvest. So I don't think that's coming out November 4th in the budget. It would be a really valuable program to be able to roll profits from Project A into Project B. Back to Brendan's point about capital intensivity of this business, we're facing an environment right now where we need $2 trillion in capital in Canada. That's new capital, not in the system to invest in real estate. Most institutions are actually lowering their risk profile in real estate, and if they're keeping it the same, it's moving to Europe or even the United States because the returns don't exist in Canada. Even City of Vancouver's pension fund won't invest in rental projects in the City of Vancouver. Federal government pension fund invests more money in other parts of the world in real estate than they do here because the returns are not there.
I'm glad to hear that it was just recent months and that's still an issue that's before the
Only
federal
because
government.
we brought it up.
Yeah, I encourage you to continue to do that. It's very successful in the United States. And then, Brendan, just to your comment around capital and a little bit of a personal gripe. As a mortgage lender in Canada, we lend about $6 billion a year in residential mortgage financing across Canada. And we have a ton of demand for construction financing, developer financing at the ground-orientated sort of 8-unit, 6-unit level. So not large construction projects, but that densification that all 3 levels of government seem to say that they want in all of their municipalities. And there's a massive bottleneck currently in the financial services sector to approving new lenders that are authorized to participate in the CMHC multifamily housing program. In fact, I don't even know when the last time they approved a new lender was. And so those people are just turned away, and that sort of ground-oriented housing that we want is being shut down and bottlenecked at that in that area. So that's a personal thing, not on behalf of the BCREA, but it's definitely something that we see in industry. And I thought I'd bring that forward because I think the demand is there and the capital actually is there. It's just we can't get it out the door. We can't get the money out the door. Thank you.
Thank you. Did you want to follow up?
Well, I don't think there was a question there. Was there, Amanda?
Okay. So any final last words before we let them go? Oh, okay.
One last question.
One more.
First of all, I certainly agree that we are never getting out of this without foreign investment. And that's going to be a tough political battle, but it's certainly one that we're fighting. My question is, given that we're approving all the housing that we are seeing, and certainly Surrey is doing a significant great job getting those through and approving the houses, the pro forma is not working to construct the houses. So what's going to happen over the next 2 or 3 years when they're not getting built, even though they've been approved? Are we going to have an exacerbated problem so that we can then sell the "we need foreign investment money" philosophy, or how do you see that going?
I think we're going to see a catastrophe of housing completions in 2028, 2029, 30, 31. And we'll see a massive run up in prices, similar to what Brendan's chart looked like before. Because it's in a lot of places in Metro Vancouver for pre-sale, it's effectively a no-bid market. It's not, can you get sales? It's you cannot get sales, even at a break-even point in a lot of cases.
Yeah, and we're doing some work right now on exactly that question. Like, if starts really stall out, ownership starts and actual starts that are, not like we've talked about, what is a start? If they really slow down in the next year because there's no pre-sales to start those projects, how long does that take to translate to like a pretty big shock to home prices? And it's generally like a 4-year time frame. So if like next year we really start to see building slow, and then you don't get those completions, and you don't get what we call vacancy chains, where a new home completes and someone in the existing housing stock occupies that home, lists their current place, and you get replenishing the entire kind of available for sale supply chain. If that's not happening, and demand picks up, as it invariably does, and in Surrey as it invariably will, inventories can get run down, and then you're going to get a pretty massive price shock. This is the way, unfortunately, the entire housing cycle has worked across, mostly in Vancouver, where you have these kind of step functions where prices get wildly out of control, and then they're flat for a little while, and we have no, supply doesn't get replenished, and then they go wild again. We're really setting ourselves up to repeat that exact same scenario in like 2028, 2029, if we don't somehow jumpstart development.
And I think now's the time also for us to just give props to the city for the Invest Surrey and the work you're doing to bring in FDI and have those important conversations to make sure we're attractive to business investment, full stop. We are out of time. Lauren, did you have a quick question?
It's a question plus a comment. I would say thank you everything what you guys do for all your pays attention. So,
thank you. I echo that. Thank you, Lauren. So Brendan Ogmanson, Brad Jones, Doug Tennant, and our keynote speakers, Deputy Mayor Lawrence and Mayor Locke, for taking the time to be here with us today and participating in this very interesting dialogue. We are here to work together to ensure that Surrey and White Rock continue to be cities that thrive and where we want to live, learn, work, and play. So thank you for your time. Another round of applause for these great guys. Before we go, I just want to thank our sponsors, lunch sponsors, BC Real Estate Association, BM Group of Companies, and Unity. Can I get a round of applause for these guys? Our supporting sponsors, Applin and Martin Consultants and the Surrey City Development Corporation. Thank you. And our community sponsor, Fortis BC. And then we'll skip the one clap, I'll just say them fast. Our pillar partners, Aspira Retirement Living, Cleveland Doan LLP, Focus College, Oceana Park, TBMS Warehousing, Western Community College, and Chambers of Commerce Group Insurance Plan by SNF Group Benefits. Let's give them one last round of applause. Our sponsors are great. Our staff also, thank you guys. You worked so hard. Great job today. And just before you go, I'd love to tell you about some more events we have coming up, because I know you guys like to come to events. Look at you, you're here. We have October 28th is Networking at Night at Unity. Doug's hosting us. Great. On Thursday, November 6th, we have our Academy Awards style 27th Annual Surrey and White Rock Business Excellence Awards. Wait till you guys see my outfit. It's fantastic. Get yours ready. November 12th is SFU's next chapter, the Medical School and Beyond. We're so excited. November 13th is the new member induction, and on the 19th is the Business Growth Academy session, Beyond Handshakes, Modern Strategies for Effective Networking. And so, of course, our new website, SWRBOT, Surrey.com is here, and I ask everyone to say thank you to the person next to you, thank you to yourself, and have a great business day.